I'm live here at Station F, and I see you guys, you're home or at the office. Thank you for being with me today. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. Hi, everyone.
Same
Hi,
here.
Guillaume. Eloi, how are you doing? Todo good? Todo bien?
Todo perfecto. Thanks for inviting me. A pleasure also.
Oh, that's a real pleasure. So the fun story is that I interviewed Eloi 2 years ago when we were doing our event in Valencia. Back then, Jeff was called Mr. Jeff, and I think you were maybe like what, half of the staff that you have today? You will tell me more about this. And today we are bringing back this conversation that we had. I don't have a beer in my hand right now, but it was kind of the vibe that we had in our last session. Very honest, very, a bold conversation with the founder who has a clear idea. I'm super happy to bring Guillaume to this conversation because maybe you didn't know each other before. You don't do the same thing, but I do think that you have a bunch of common things, as founders who are building your businesses and scaling on your own terms and sometimes without external funding. And that's something I also hope to cover. Let's start with you, Eloi, because again, I had that conversation 2 years ago. What is it that you do at Jeff? Quickly tell us about the growth journey of your company.
So at Jeff, we're doing one amazing thing that's democratizing entrepreneurship. So we are helping people to start business from scratch. We allow the entrepreneur to have everything what they need to start a business with us. So we are like a Shopify 2.0 to start your business. We give you the know-how, the technology, and also the brand. We operate now 40 markets with 2,500 entrepreneurs that they are in 4 verticals that are laundry stores, beauty stores, fit stores, and relax stores. And on top of that, we are building an app for the end consumer where he can find all of these verticals and the future more others just to enjoy the life, the good life, how we love to say in India.
The good life. And that's also something that you, Guillaume, is doing with lemlist. Like you also are in the mission to democratize entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like our mission is to actually help 1 million entrepreneurs to launch a profitable business in the next 4 years. On our end, we built like a lemlist, a tool that helps sales team get more meetings with their potential customers. So we launched 3 years ago. We have more than 10,000 plus customers all over the world. So we're in 85 plus countries, and we're scaling at a 2-digit month-over-month growth rate. So hyper growth with $0 in external fundings.
Thank you. Eloi, can you tell us also about growth numbers and can maybe, the employee staffing, that type of things?
Sure. So we have been always doing 3x year over year. We're going to end this year with more than 40 million on annualized account revenue. And we are 400 people from 45 nationalities, I think, something like that. So yes, having fun also, but in our case with external funding.
How much funding did you get to get to that level?
We raised 45 million since we started the company. We have a model that we need to invest heavily in product because we have to add a lot of things from the operational perspective to bring into a digital product. But we are now in a good position where the economics are helping us a lot. So I think it's part of the conversation. Thanks to these economics, we have been always a bit ahead of the curve and have the opportunity to take best decisions in terms of our funding.
Tell me what, maybe some of your learnings and lessons learned, throughout the journey. What did you break and you shouldn't have broken, or vice versa? And I think, Guillaume, you wrote recently about it. Like you have a post online about all the advice that you received and you didn't follow at the beginning of your journey.
Yes, well, basically when we start, so we are doing a model that no one is doing. So we are creating a concept. This is especially difficult when you come from Europe and from Spain because 95% of things are copycats. So what model are you emulating here? What are you doing? No, it's just, we think it's the right thing. But they haven't even seen something like that. Well, yes, but at one day, someone has to start something different. First 2 years, we're more looking outside about what other people were doing because we thought that because they have been more time on the business or they come from other parts of the world with more experience, they know how to do it better. And what I learned so far is that most of the times you are the one who knows more about your industry. So you can learn and get inspiration from the outside, but at the end, the decision that you have to do are your own. And also what I have learned so far is that most of the contrarian decisions were the most exponential. And sometimes also we fail. But if you really want to do something different, you should not avoid to take the risk to do these kind of things.
Guillaume, what about your experience?
I think we all receive like tons of advice, when you're growing a company, either from mentors or people you meet. I guess for me, like the things where we did things differently were several things. So first of all, we said no to 30 million. So we received an offer like a couple months ago, and we said no to show that you can actually grow a company by being bootstrapped. I'm not against like fundraising, because I think, and I think Jeff is it's a good example. Like you guys need to invest heavily. You need to be like first to market. So you need a lot of fundings. In our case, we're already in a very competitive market. And I believe that having like less funding than others and being a bit the underdog is actually our strengths. When it comes to, I would say like hiring, for example, like a lot of people told us, when we crossed, at first, when we started 3 years ago, everyone was telling us, like you're in a super crowded market. It's a red ocean. You'll never make it to 1 million ARR. And if you make it to 1 million, it will take you like maybe like 5 years. In less than 2 years, we crossed 1 million ARR. And on the side, we had built actually like another business that we exited after 18 months. And so people were starting, to look at lemlist in a way like, okay, where are these guys and everything? But then they told me like, okay, maybe you reach 1 million, but if you want to reach 10 million, you're going to have to hire, like really experienced people. And actually everyone who I hired never had experience in SaaS in the past. So I had to train everyone, because I believe like, you can really learn a lot of things. And yeah, that's kind of how it went. And I have a long list of advice that I didn't follow, but...
How many employees are currently working at lemlist?
Right now we're like 35, so it's a small team, but we try to be very like cash efficient, and that's kind of also our metric, because we also give to our employee a percentage of the overall revenue at the end of the year. That way we can really like share all the earnings we have. So it's not very VC compatible model, but employees are happy, and I think it's a great way, because I always think that whenever you're like under constraints, especially with like financial constraints, even though we don't really have any more right now, but at least you're making like a bolder decision and things. Sometimes you're becoming more creative. More money for me equals like more problems also. So sometimes it's good, to put yourself into something like an innovative way of doing things, and for us it has worked pretty well.
Eloi, do you feel the pressure of your investors as you're scaling and growing at Jeff, or you still have this freedom to, break things and do creative things?
Well, the truth is that, we're very lucky. So investors have trust in us since the beginning. We have always been very clear. So I think the relationship between investors and funders is built since the beginning, since the due diligence, or even before, when you are just pitching. And about what's your strategy, what's your mentality. And we have very clear values and vision about what we want to do. And if we are not aligned, we prefer just to don't have any money. Because at the end, the investor players allocate money in people that they trust. And yes, of course, they have experience, but they know that the end game is, okay, I trust this guy, this team, I have to back them. So we have been very lucky. We have investors that have trust in us. A couple of funds that we are in our cap table. We are the company that they have allocate more money of their funds in us. So I think this is a very good signal. And they have been in several rounds with us. So we have created this relationship since the beginning. We have our good times, bad times, and we're going to have it in the future. But we have a very transparent relationship. So in my case, I've been very lucky, because they allow us to just execute our vision.
And you're based in Valencia, in Spain, as I mentioned at the beginning. This is where we got to meet. Tell me, both of you, about what's going on in your own ecosystem. Guillaume, it will be easier because we're going to be speaking about France, and that's also one of the focus of today's event. But maybe to put a bit of perspective, now you're able to build a company like Jeff from a place like Valencia. Maybe, a few years ago, it was something harder to do. Tell me, Eloi, about your experience, what's happening in your own ecosystem, and then Guillaume, please tell me a bunch of nice things about Paris and maybe things that should be better as well.
So taking from Valencia, so the main point here is that people want to work for a startup, but they don't understand quite well what a startup is about. So most of the people that's working with us, they're first experience in a startup. So it's a cultural barrier. So we have to do a lot of work. You mentioned before also about learning. Yes, and this is something completely different. No one is going to tell you what to do. You have to figure it out. So we fight a lot with this at the beginning. Then we have been able to recruit international talent to come to the office, and this help also a lot to grow the people. The truth is that we have never a problem to attract talent to Valencia so far. We have always been very flexible. So, for example, we have people working in Madrid or Barcelona that are close and come to 3 days. Now we have a flexible policy. So people can work from Valencia, but can work from other parts of the world. So in my experience, we have been able to do it because we bring international talent, different stage of the company to just raise the level. Because at one time people needs the support and this change, but also it's just push people to make it. I'm now in Mexico City. So if you look now in Mexico City, most of the companies that are today come from the rocket internet times. So that's kind of amazing, like 7 years ago. So I think what will happen in Valencia, or what I hope, is that people that come out from Jeff and from other companies at one point will do their own thing. So I think it's a process that we have to go through, and I think Valencia is a couple of years behind Paris, Madrid, Barcelona, and other places. But the good thing that we have in Valencia is that it's a good weather, good quality of life, and a lot of people want to enjoy these battles.
Love it. Thank you. Tell me a bunch of things I don't know about, building a company in Paris, Guillaume, please.
It's actually quite funny because even though we started in Paris, I was the only one based in Paris, and my co-founders were outside. So another co-founder was in Lille, and the other one was in the Paris region. But our first employees were actually abroad, and we started building the company remote from day one. I think, to be honest, it's a great ecosystem overall. Like I think you're in Station F right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
French Tech Central.
I started there, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's great to see because when you're like building a startup, I think you will always have rough times, like the toughest moments, and you need to exchange with other entrepreneurs. And I feel like sometimes, like being an entrepreneur, being the CEO, you can have a lot of lonely times. And I feel like whenever you're surrounded, with other founders, it's much easier to start exchanging, etc. And I think like they did an amazing job at Station F for that, because you're surrounded with thousands of entrepreneurs. So it's much easier to reach out and basically get advice. I also think that things are getting better because, like the European markets, a lot of people were starting their company and really focusing, for example, on France or Europe, but not really like looking at the US. On our case, like we really started the vast majority of our customers are US based. I think it's around 80% or something. And I feel like we have more and more European startup and French startup going directly to the US without having, to think about European market. It's going global from day one. I think it's something that we see more and more. And I think that this is really, really exciting. And maybe something that might be missing a little bit is the ambition to go global, because it's still like a tiny percentage of startup. Like a lot of startups think that they need offices in the US so they can succeed there. I think it's not true. Like in the early days of lemlist, I was doing calls in the US from 4 p.m. in Paris up to like 10 p.m. But I was closing deals, and this can work. And I think during COVID, you learned, and we all learned, that it's possible, to just be pretty much anywhere in the world and have this type of conversation. We're even organizing events like this, which is something we wouldn't have thought of before. So I think it's great. I think the future is bright for European startup because we have good tech, we have like good products. We're not always super great in marketing and sales, but I think it's getting better overall. So that's nice.
One more question before we wrap it up. You do a lot of content with lemlist, and it's aligned with your goal to educate entrepreneurs, like to empower entrepreneurs. I'm wondering, what is it that maybe people are asking you the most? And that question for you, Eloi, as well, is maybe around yourself in Valencia or maybe even abroad. What are young founders asking you about? Like, what are the sort of recurring questions? What are people wondering? And Guillaume, please let me know about your own experience.
First question, it's like, how do you find your first 10 customers? I received that a lot. I think people are, like sales, and I think a lot of people have misconception about the role of the founder. In my opinion, the founder at first should do sales, should do marketing, should be like doing a lot of things in the early days, so he understands all the ins and outs of a business. And I think like finding your first customers is just like going out there and showing and trying to pitch in a better way your product and service, building relationships. And I think people are scared to do that because a lot of time, it's during this time that you're gonna take the biggest slap on your face, because some people are just gonna tell you like, yeah, it's not helpful, or what you're trying to do is not good, but this is where you learn. So for me, it's really a matter of start doing things. Your first article will probably not be good. Your first cold email will probably be not good as well, but eventually you will get better. And once you get better, that's when your company start growing, and that's when you can start hiring.
Thank you. Eloi, what's your experience with young founders? What do they ask,
So they ask a lot about fundraising. So they ask me a lot about how to fundraise and how to do this kind of things. Well, I think I would say the same. So Guillaume mentioned it's about relationships. So and it's about create trust. So as soon as you can build relationship with out there, not just in your local market, the better. So try to have not just funds from your local ecosystem. This helps a lot. Because when I started back time in Spain, we were 10 guys. So not that many opportunities. And so I always tell, okay, just speak with as much people as you can. So if you know that you have to fundraise, this is the same that find customers. So it's a funnel. So if you speak to 1,000, you have more chances to get to the final result. So don't think about too much. Just go to the process, start to see how it goes. This is the same to find a customer. And this is how I feel it.
I love it, actually, because you're giving me the perfect cue to do a transition to our next session, because you're talking of relationships, and that's a lot of what we're doing here at Sesame. As you know, we have built this community with a lot of members who are event organizers. It's kind of a particular breed of people, and we've been gathering them virtually over the past year. Every week, we've been doing this weekly coffee at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. So basically, at the time of this event that we're doing now, to learn from each other. And so the relationship side that you're just sharing is definitely something that we also believe in, and that is part of a lot of our work. So I want to thank you guys.